Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over a potential big winter storm for portions of the Great Lakes and the Northeast. Some areas could be picking up as much as 6 inches of snowfall, especially if you live over southern New Hampshire or over eastern Maine. Some of those areas could be picking up, again, some quite heavy snowfall. We're also going to be dealing with potentially a threat of some snow along the coast, so we'll also be breaking that down for you guys. And also, we'll be giving you my personal snowfall forecast for this event. So make sure you are staying tuned all the way until the end, so you don't miss my forecast or anything else inside of this video, because we will be going into a lot of depth in this video, and we will be looking at a couple of other factors that usually you wouldn't see on with the storm, because this is a very dynamic system. There's a lot of things that are moving with the system, and we have a lot of different things that you have to look at when you're preparing this forecast. So here is the current National Weather Service page. We'll go from west to east. Over northern Alaska, we have some wind chill advisories and warnings in effect, and that's where temperatures could feel like, your wind chills could feel like about negative 70 degrees, according to the National Weather Service in Anchorage, Alaska. And then we also see, or actually Fairbanks, Alaska, we have some winter weather advisories in effect for portions of Montana, Idaho, Washington, and Oregon, with some winter storm warnings in the pink right there for portions of Washington and Idaho. We also have some winter storm watches in effect for portions of northeastern California there. And then we have a whole slew of wind advisories and wind warnings and wind watches in effect for portions of the Northwest. And you see that in those golden colors and those browns and the lighter browns there, where you're dealing with wind issues. We have some flood watches in effect for portions of Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. And then we also have some winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings in effect for portions of the interior Northeast and northern New England there, where you're dealing with another system, Winter Storm John, which is moving through those areas and causing quite a bit of issues for those regions. Now, here is the European model high resolution, and we're going to look at this and kind of play this through and see what this model is showing. So you start to see a little ball of energy move up from portions of Missouri into, from Arkansas into Missouri, and then it's going to eventually move into portions of the lower Great Lakes. What you're also seeing is a little area of moisture, which actually that area that you saw flood watches in effect for, that's going to be your system that's going to go up the coast and become that nor'easter that might prove to actually bring some snowfall to some of these regions right here. And we see this system that's going to come out of the southeastern United States, move up the coast. This system is going to come from the lower Great Lakes, bring with it a little bit of cold air, and then of course we have a lot of questions as to what happens right here when both of them converge. So we're dealing with, by tonight, right around this would be right around 6 p.m. Central Time. We have a lot of snow, light to moderate, moving through portions of Missouri and Illinois there, and that continues to head further to the east. This is not going to be a huge snowfall event, especially if you live in the Great Lakes. This is going to be a light coating to an inch at most, maybe a couple areas getting closer to 2 inches of snowfall. Again, my snowfall forecast will be at the end of the video, and we see some of that, again, light to moderate snowfall moving through Illinois, Indiana, and then maybe even getting into northern Ohio and southern Michigan. A bit of mixing is also possible. If you live over central Pennsylvania, be alert for potentially some ice accumulation issues for those regions. You could be seeing maybe a glazing of ice, probably 0.05 inches of ice, if I had to kind of give my forecast for that. So it's not going to be a whole lot, but it definitely could cause a couple issues, and it might just cause some hassles there on the roadways. And then as we move further to the east, we were looking at probably by around 7 a.m. Eastern time, we're dealing with that low pressure system out of the southeast, moving further up the coast, which by this point is down here in North Carolina. We have some of that snow banding further to the north, and again, both of these are going to converge very, very quickly and very, very soon on this model run. And as we continue this forward, you start to see that by right around 10 a.m. Eastern time, here to be by 1 p.m., here's by 4 p.m. We're dealing with a lot more of that snow moving through portions of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and then starting to head into New England there. And some of these areas of snow could be moderate to heavy at times, maybe closer to half an inch to maybe even 3/4 of an inch per hour. Snowfall rates, maybe you could see a couple areas that get to an inch per hour snowfall rates in some cases, and you start to see more of that snow break out for portions of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, upstate New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and into Vermont there. And then as you continue this forward, you start to see that by Monday morning, right around 1 a.m. Eastern time, we're looking at that snow starting to wrap around on that back end. Don't be surprised if you live over portions of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland. If you do see a couple snow showers Monday morning, I wouldn't be surprised if that were to happen. We do have some lingering moisture and some cold air on that back end that could definitely be a possibility there. But the main snow is going to be further to the north in New England, upstate New York, Pennsylvania, and northern New Jersey there, where you guys are looking at potentially some light to moderate snowfall, and over southeastern New England, potentially even some heavy snowfall if the European model were to be correct. And then we're dealing with the system having to make a decision. Is it going to move further to the north into the Gulf of Maine, or is it going to make its way further to the east and just head out into just south of Nova Scotia there, kind of like this? And that's what the NAM model shows. What the European model shows is this is kind of driving into portions of Maine and then lingering there and then potentially moving even westward, which I don't think is very likely. It's very rare that this would move westward. I think if anything, it might curve and then as it's getting closer to shore, just continue to move further to the east. The European model definitely pumps a lot more snowfall out for these regions than what I've seen on other models. So definitely you have to take this model with a grain of salt. It is also one of the colder solutions to this, so definitely I would bring that rain snow line a little bit further to the north than what you're seeing on this model. And as we continue this forward, you start to see that by Monday right around 7 a.m. Eastern time, we're dealing with the system spinning about just southeast of Massachusetts there, and then you're dealing with the system continuing to push further to the north and further to the northeast, where you're dealing with actually some snow along coastal Maine, and then you start to see the system just really stays there, sticks around, and doesn't really move a lot over the next couple of days. You see that this is probably not going to end until about Wednesday over a lot of these areas, where I think probably by Wednesday it finally will start to move further and further to the east. So here's your snowfall forecast from the European model, and this is over portions of Michigan into Ontario, and also back through portions of the northern northern New England and the interior northeast. Some of that is including what's happening with this winter storm for today and into early tomorrow. So definitely some of those amounts will be a lot higher. So definitely this isn't all from this one system, but it's actually from both of these systems, so it can be a little bit confusing. We see that we do have some of those 1 to 2 inch amounts over portions of Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, and back through into Missouri there. And I think those amounts are a little bit too high, but it's definitely a possibility there. And as we head this over to the northeast, you start to see a lot heavier amounts. I think you should cut these amounts in half about. I think these amounts are a little bit too overdone. And I would also move the area of heaviest snow a little bit further to the north. So instead of your heaviest snow being along the coast, maybe move that further to the north so it's back through portions of central New England and into portions of northernmost New Jersey, northeastern Pennsylvania, southern upstate New York, and kind of in that region. Just because I don't think the heaviest snowfall, even if you do see some snowfall, I don't think the heaviest snowfall will be that far to the south. And then also, again, take precautions when you're looking at this if you live over portions of Maine, New Hampshire, or Vermont, or the surrounding areas, just because this is including both of the winter storms in that. You do see some heavy amounts, and the better thing to use this map for is actually to look at where are the heaviest amounts, where is this model indicating snowfall. So for example, in this type of scenario where I'm trying to figure out either does this move into Maine and also how far south does this rain snow line go, I'm going to be looking at the southern fringe of this. How far south does that snow get? I'm not going to really be looking at the exact amounts, and that's what you guys should do when we look through these models. So here's what the National Weather Service is showing, and it's actually showing some hefty amounts. And again, they're shifting that heaviest snowfall further to the north into central New England and back through upstate New York and northeastern Pennsylvania there. If we look at the NAM 3CAM model, which is the one that just left this out to sea, and you can see the resemblance of that low pressure system that just went straight to the east there, didn't even curve back into Maine. It does show some snowfall, although it really doesn't show a whole heck of a lot of snowfall over portions of New England, The heavier snowfall would be over upstate New York, Pennsylvania, and northernmost New Jersey if this were to be the case. Now, here is just something that I found super interesting when I was looking at this. This is what the surface map looks like when you're looking at this for Monday right around 1 a.m. Eastern time, or 6Z on the model run, and this would be for January 4th. Now, here is that 925 HPA level of freezing line, and I drew it in on red, and that's about 2.5 thousand feet up in the atmosphere. Now, you're looking at this and you're saying, well, that freezing line is fairly far to the south, and usually you would think, okay, well, it's 2.5 thousand feet up, you would have to bring this freezing line a little bit further to the north. So let's say that freezing line is maybe 25 miles further north, which usually is how you would typically look at this. The 925 HPA level usually is fairly close to what the surface level is. But when you look at some of the other factors, when you look at that field of precipitation, it is actually fairly wide. It's encompassing a lot of these areas. So this is where the model was showing some sort of precipitation, and you're looking at potentially that precipitation fairly enclosed in a lot of that below zero temperatures and a lot of that colder air. So you would think that much of New England and into upstate New York, northern New Jersey, and Pennsylvania is dealing with snow by this point. But when you look at the surface temperatures, and again, I said it's usually 25 miles north. The 925 HPA freezing line is usually 25 miles, 50 miles to the south of where the actual freezing line at the surface is. This is not 25 or 50 miles. This is further north. This is maybe 75 or 100 miles further to the north of there. And this is definitely very interesting because we do have a fairly shallow warm layer further down at the surface. You're dealing with temperatures, if we actually bring up the actual temperatures on the surface, that are actually fairly warm, 36, 35, and then as you get further to the south, they're down into the 40s over some of these regions. So we do have a shallow warm layer, but then you go maybe just 2,000 or 3,000 feet up in the atmosphere, and it's actually fairly cold. It's below zero for a lot of these areas in Celsius. And you're looking at that freezing line fairly far to the south when you're just a couple thousand feet up in the atmosphere. So the main reason that I showed you that and that I described that was mainly just because if we do see a system that kind of strengthens a little bit more, if you get a little bit more lift in the atmosphere, don't be surprised if we do see something kind of crazy happen with this system where we don't expect it to snow over some of these regions, but it actually does end up snowing. And that's just because of how kind of fickle these temperatures are, how close to the freezing mark these temperatures are, and how much they can still change, even though we are only 20 to maybe even 50 hours out from this event. So they definitely could change, and I would definitely be watching this area right here for the greatest change in the forecast as of right now, and that's what I'm going to be definitely watching over the next couple of model runs and the next couple of days. So here is my snowfall forecast for this event from Sunday through Tuesday. I'm expecting under an inch of snowfall for portions of Missouri, Iowa, eastward into portions of Ohio and into Michigan, and then back through into portions of the Northeast there, where you are dealing with potentially a coating to maybe even an inch of snowfall. This is not where I'm expecting too much accumulation. You might see a light grazing of snowfall on some colder surfaces or some elevated surfaces. As you get into this blue, this is where you could see some accumulation. We have 4 areas where I'm expecting over an inch of snowfall. That's one for central Missouri, another one for northern Indiana and the surrounding regions, another one for portions of the Smoky Mountains in West Virginia and also into western Maryland, and then one more region for portions of northeastern Pennsylvania, southern upstate New York, northwestern New Jersey, into northern Connecticut, northwesternmost Rhode Island, back through into interior Massachusetts, and then into southern New England, and then back through into much of Maine, or actually into central New England, and then back through much of Maine there, where you're looking at 1 to 3 inches of snowfall expected, and I think probably in a lot of these areas it's going to be closer to 1 to 2 inches of snowfall, and then 3 to 6 inches in a couple of isolated pockets there for the Catskills in upstate New York, and then also for another region in northern and southern New Hampshire, and then into southern and coastal Maine there, where probably it's going to be closer to 3 or 4 inches of snowfall, 6 inches at the most in some of these regions. And again, there could be some sort of surprise where you actually do see some of those colder temperatures that are only 2,000 or so feet above your head kind of translate down to the surface. That is a possibility. So even though this map doesn't show anything for a lot of those regions, definitely if you do live within some of these areas that are closer to that under an inch line, that could shift further to the south, and that's just because of how close to freezing these temperatures are and how marginal these temperatures really are. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.